So what's going on? He said, shot your son.
A day after a 15-year-old boy was shot and killed, his family grieves as Toronto police try and figure out if the teenager was targeted or hit by a bullet meant for someone else. Police have arrested and charged another 15-year-old with the murder of Safiola Kozrewe. The daylight shooting happened near Markham and Ellesmere, not far from Woburn High School, where both of the teens were students. Greg Ross joins us live from that community now. And Greg, a meeting is happening there tonight about gang prevention.
That's right, Dwight. This was a pre-planned community town hall, which is being hosted by the Toronto Police Guns and Gangs Unit here at Heron Park Community Centre in Scarborough. But coincidentally, it does happen the day after that tragic shooting yesterday that cost a 15-year-old student his life. And now police are trying to determine if that shooting was gang-related. Earlier today, I spoke with the father of the victim in this shooting, who was killed while walking home from school.
Very hard, I told you, very hard. Very hard to hold, very hard.
Abdullah Khosrari had a hard time finding the words to describe how he's feeling just a day after learning his son, Safiola Khosrari, was gunned down while walking home from school Monday afternoon.
Never expect to be happening like that, especially for around the kids' school coming out.
He says his son was a quiet teenager who stayed out of trouble. He says he was a good student who loved to play soccer and go swimming at the local community center. Not the type of kid you would expect to be involved with something like this.
It's unbelievable. I can't believe it that Mom, from up to now, couldn't let us to an hospital to see at least the kids.
Police say at this point it's too early to say if this was a targeted shooting or if Khosrari was an innocent bystander in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Nothing in the victim's background or who he is indicates as to why this occurred to him. However, we have still a lot more evidence to go through, a lot more witnesses to speak to.
Khosrari had never been in trouble with police, but they say the suspect, who can't be named under the Youth Criminal Justice Act, is known to them.
We have identified with the accused some gang ties. It is unclear if that has played into this incident.
Khosrari's family is searching for answers. His father says they are completely devastated by this. He says the worst part is not only were they unable to be by his side in his final moments, they weren't even allowed to see his body.
We went to the hospital, couldn't show us. That was hurt very hard. That very hurt us. Up to now, we didn't see my kids.
Police are asking anyone with information about this shooting to come forward, and they believe there may have been a number of witnesses. Remember, this happened right after school while many students were walking home. They're asking any of those students who may have cell phone video of this incident to come forward and provide that to police. And we're also hearing rumors that there may have been a second suspect in this shooting, possibly another target in the shooting. At this point, police have not been able to confirm any of that. They're hoping maybe video will help determine if there was somebody else involved in this shooting. And they say that the school is also going to be providing grief counseling for students tomorrow. And if there were as many students around as police believe, then there probably are quite a few students, Dwight, who could use that grief counseling.
Thank you for that, Greg. He served approximately a third of his more than 6-year sentence, but tonight the former Toronto police officer who shot and killed Sammy Ateem on a streetcar has been granted full parole. Lorenda Redekop reports on the reasons for the board's decision.
James Fursillo is out on full parole, 2 years and 2 months after his sentence began. He's already been out on day parole for 6 months. The case made news across the country. 18-year-old Sammy Ateem armed with a knife on a streetcar, empty by the time officers pointed their guns. Fursillo fires 2 separate volleys of shots. He was found guilty of attempted murder in connection to the second round of shots. The parole board decision says Fursillo has attended psychological counseling and is at a low risk to reoffend. In the decision, the parole board writes, "You have provided a viable plan for full parole, have strong community and family support, have been engaged in your correctional plan, and have transitioned well to the community. As a result, it calls Fursillo's risk manageable."
It is unusual. 7 out of 10 cases don't make it through their first parole hearing.
This criminologist was surprised by the decision, but also understands it.
If you look at the case that's been put forward, if you look at some of the statements that have been released in the media about how Forcillo has been behaving in prison, it seems like that maybe he is the ideal prisoner and has shown that he is capable of release.
Sammy Ateem's mother spoke 4 years ago, after Forcillo's conviction.
Nothing in this world will compensate me for my loss of my son.
The parole board says it considered victim impact statements by Sammy Ateem's family in this decision. It refers to him as a loving son, protective older brother, and much loved member of his community. It says the Ateem family continues to suffer, and one condition of Forcillo's release is no contact with them to prevent any further trauma. In the area where the shooting happened, people are frustrated.
To abuse your power like that, I'm sorry, he did not deserve full parole. To me, he didn't. He should be serving his full-time sentence.
I think it's wrong. I think he should have served his full sentence.
There's lots of examples in the world where police officers and law enforcement are able to control situations without firing their weapons.
Forcillo is also under a lifetime weapons ban. The parole board says he's attending college and plans to become an electrician. Lorenda Redicomp, CBC News, Toronto.
In a proposed change that's raising some eyebrows, the Ontario government is considering allowing developers to hire their own building inspectors. It's part of the province's attempt to streamline the permit system. As John Lancaster reports, some feel the move could do more harm than good.
Toronto's landscape is ever evolving, with new condos and high-rises going up constantly. And the way these buildings are inspected to ensure they meet code may also evolve. Essentially, the Ford government is considering letting developers hire their own building inspectors to police their work. The development industry is on board with the idea.
We're struggling to get inspections done in a timely way, and when those delays happen, it backs up the entire project. So, the idea here is to get people to their homes sooner and safer. This is a concept that, with provincial support, can make that happen in a way that helps everyone in the process.
City officials say, as it stands, the vast majority of building inspections are done within 48 hours of a developer's request. Will Johnston says the potential change could lead to potential conflicts of interest.
Independence is important to Toronto building is because when you have an independent process where you have independent oversight of the building regulatory process, what the public can have is trust and confidence in that the buildings that they live in, they work in, that they visit are safe.
The province is looking into sending architects and engineers back to school to obtain additional certification to what building inspectors do. They would then be allowed to sign off on inspectors' reports for developers. The Ontario Association of Architects says that proposal will mean consumers would pay more in building costs.
While a developer may pay to hire a certified professional, that fee, that payment is ultimately going to be flowed through to either the homeowner or the business owner who's going to occupy that space.
The province says it hasn't made a decision when or if the proposed changes will come into effect. John Lancaster, CBC News, Toronto.
Yeah, so the teachers want more, they want better deals to make their class look better. They want high school students to take courses on like the internet, which is not good.
I support the unions who are supporting their teachers and teaching assistants because I think that what they're doing is protecting our educational system.
As thousands of teachers were once again out of their classrooms across Ontario, some students and parents were voicing their support for the job action. For the first time since 1997, English Catholic school teachers were on the picket lines, joining forces with elementary school teachers and some high school teachers this week. Shannon Martin joins us live now from Queen's Park. And Shannon, why are Catholic teachers taking this step now?
Well, they're saying they're already feeling the cuts in the classroom, and the fear is for them that it could only get worse. The last time Catholic teachers and the government were at the table together was January 9th, and today it's pretty obvious that they are nowhere close to getting back there. From Mississauga to downtown Toronto, there's no missing their message.
In the first year of these cuts, my entire drama program reduced to one section. I was surprised by how swiftly the cuts impacted programs like my own. Tech programs, all sorts of elective subjects, kids will no longer have access to because of the impact of these class size reductions.
So to see that after teaching for 29 years, what's that?
It's devastating.
And familiar. She was on the picket line back in 1997. And it feels similar to that?
No. It was difficult under Harris, but my sense, my felt sense, it's worse under Ford.
Worse, Catholic teachers and their union feel, in part because of proposed mandatory e-learning for high school students. They say it just won't work for every student.
We've moderated our position on the e-learning from 4 classes over 4 years to 2 classes over 4 years to meet them halfway.
The Ford government maintains the holdup is over wages. It is committed to capping annual salary increases at 1%.
It doesn't matter if it's the government that's NDP under Bob Rae or a government that's Conservative under Doug Ford or a government's Liberal under Kathleen Wynne. These things happen every 3 years. We think it's unfair to parents. We want to stand with parents and show them that, we're working hard to get a deal.
The union boss says they're ready to talk, but won't budge when it comes to the quality of education.
The real concern is what's going to happen next year when more cuts come in, and the year after that when even more cuts come in. We have a responsibility to stand up and fight for these kids.
So Dwight, both sides saying today that they are ready to talk, but both sides accusing the other side of not willing to meet in the middle. So far, no talks are scheduled.
Shannon, yesterday the public elementary teachers went on strike in this city, and now we're hearing report cards are going to be impacted because of that.
That's right. So TDSB and Peel both sending out notices today saying that because of everything that's going on, teachers will not be filing report cards. But a reminder to parents, if you want to talk about your children's progress, that you can still, of course, ask your teachers how they're doing. Dwight?
Thank you, Shannon. When a snow shovel just isn't doing the job, why not use a blowtorch? A video circulating on social media shows this Markham man doing just that. He's been using a long blowtorch connected to a can of propane in an attempt to thaw the snow bank on his driveway. I don't know about that one there,
Dwight, he's not making a lot of progress.
It does not. I figured that shovel would have got that out there a long time ago than you there with your blowtorch. Come on now, people, really?
Yeah, well, you never know. Might have some sore joints, rather, from shoveling, and so you got to be a little bit creative sometimes, I guess. We've just had a fairly short cold spell, and now we're almost back to seasonal, and we're going to find our temperatures going in the other direction. We're going to be on the mild side of things, melt some of that snow. Yeah, we just might, although it's just a little bit above freezing for the daytime highs. These are the current temperatures, though. We're sitting at -5, and then it feels like -11 with the breeze that through most of the day has been from the west-southwest. As high pressure builds in, we'll actually get into a clearing trend and lose some of those clouds that we've had through the day today. Now, that means sunshine to set us up for tomorrow. That big, broad ridge of high pressure, you can see the clear conditions all through the eastern seaboard, pushing back towards the Midwest. But that's where things get interesting. We have some energy just to the west of us, and then this energy coming out of the Rockies. It's going to move forward, pull up some moisture from the Gulf, reminiscent of the system that came through last weekend, and bring a mix for us this coming weekend. In the meantime, though, enjoy the southwesterly flow, a little bit breezy at times through the day tomorrow, and then the winds turn more towards the west, and the clouds will start to come in on Thursday. But in the interim, we get these milder temperatures, and for tomorrow, we're going to get some sunshine as well. -7 tonight, 1 for the high, Dwight, tomorrow.
Thank you, Colette.
You're welcome.
Check out a close call aboard a GO bus this morning. Metrolink says a thick chunk of ice flew off of a transport truck and smashed into the front windshield on the 401 near Meadowvale. There were passengers on the double-decker bus at the time. Incredibly, no one was injured, and the driver was able to pull over safely. A 26-year-old woman is dead after being hit by a tractor trailer early this morning.
We've got sort of a woman that was obviously on foot walking and crossing the street in some fashion. We don't have all those details just yet. But during the turning motion of this commercial truck, she was struck by that vehicle and succumbed to injuries.
The truck didn't stop after hitting the victim, but police say they've now located the driver and that person is cooperating with officers. The collision took place around 7 this morning in an industrial area not far from Dufferin and Steeles. The woman is the second pedestrian fatality in Toronto so far this year. Health officials in the U.S. say a person in Washington state has been diagnosed with the SARS-like virus that has killed 6 people in China. The patient diagnosed with the first North American case of the new coronavirus is a man in his 30s. He's said to be in good condition in hospital. The man is a U.S. citizen who recently traveled to China. He went to a doctor after noticing symptoms over the weekend. The virus was first detected last month in Wuhan, China. Since then, cases have been found in Thailand, Japan, and South Korea. There have been no cases in Canada, but health officials telling CBC's Power and Politics this afternoon they are preparing for that possibility.
You know, we're certainly preparing for the potential of a first case in Canada. Let me just say, quite honestly, this is a respiratory virus that has symptoms like all other respiratory viruses. People can come in if they're asymptomatic. So there's what we call the incubation period, where for a number of days, even someone's infected, they don't even know it, they can come through the border. So our border measures is just one layer of protection. What we've done is alerted the health system of Canada to be on the lookout for potential travelers that may be infected.
Chinese officials, meanwhile, say the number of cases in that country has surged again, and there is concern tonight that with the Chinese New Year approaching and millions of people on the move, it could make the situation even worse. Sasha Petrusik has the latest tonight from Beijing.
Chinese officials are now painting a picture of a very fast-moving outbreak. The numbers themselves have been going up rapidly over the weekend. They tripled from 60-something into over 200, and just overnight they've gone up to about 300 now. So these are officially recognized cases, though experts internationally and in Hong Kong are saying that those numbers are probably much higher, over 1,000, maybe 1,300, maybe as high as 1,700 right now, and probably growing beyond that. These are infections of the new coronavirus, which they expect is only going to be growing. What's interesting about this is that it seems to be based around one city in central China, Wuhan, and in particular, the virus seems to have started from this ground zero market in the center of the city, where animals probably allowed this virus to move from them to people. Now we know that the virus is moving from person to person, which of course means that it could spread much farther and much faster. Almost all of the cases seem to be traced back to Wuhan itself. Well, that is likely to change over the next week for sure, as hundreds of millions of Chinese hit the railways, the buses, and the planes and travel throughout the country and internationally for Chinese New Year. This is the busiest travel time of the year. People are going to visit their families, going to visit and do tourist things internationally, and some of them could potentially be carrying this virus with them. So experts are bracing for a much bigger spread. Certainly the potential is there, and the World Health Organization is having an emergency meeting tomorrow to try to figure out what to do about this. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Beijing.
In Washington, what looked like an attempt to compromise quickly collapsed into a partisan battle as Donald Trump's impeachment trial got underway today. Democrats are fighting with the GOP over how the trial should proceed in the Republican-controlled U.S. Senate. Both sides are digging in behind well-etched party lines. Katie Simpson now with the details.
Liberty and justice for all. The Pledge of Allegiance, a brief moment of civility before a bitter fight, a battle over how the impeachment trial will proceed.
This is the fair roadmap for our trial. We need it in place before we can move forward.
Republicans are proposing each side get 3 days to make opening arguments, a walk back of their initial pitch of just 2 days, after Democrats complained it would force proceedings into the overnight hours and potentially out of sight of most Americans. But that is where the compromise ends.
If the House cannot call witnesses or introduce documents and evidence, it's not a fair trial. It's not really a trial at all.
Democrats are demanding the Senate allow additional witnesses to testify and that the White House hand over all documents relevant to the Ukraine pressure campaign. The president's lawyers are against that, saying all evidence should have been collected before starting the impeachment trial and that this whole process is nothing more than a charade.
A partisan impeachment is like stealing an election. And that's exactly what we have.
Republicans hold the balance of power in the Senate, so the rules proposed by Mitch McConnell are expected to be adopted. While the roadmap doesn't outright dismiss the idea of new witnesses, it punts the decision until after opening arguments are complete and after senators are allowed to ask questions. Democrats say that is far too late in the process for a fair trial. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
Still ahead, we take you to Newfoundland, where after 4 days of digging out, residents can finally dig in. That's because grocery stores reopened today, and with it, long snaking lines. More on that at 6:30. But first, a grand new vision for the second biggest city in the GTA.
Mississauga's population is expected to double by 2021, and now a developer is trying to transform this whole area into a new downtown for the city, with Square One Mall at the heart of it. I'm Lauren Pelly, and I'll have more on that massive project coming up.
The weather update is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
It's a development that could transform the heart of Mississauga. Plans for dozens of high-rise towers were unveiled today. The decades-long project could create a whole new city center. As Lauren Pelly reports, though, it's prompting both excitement and concern.
Mississauga's city center is already a bustling place, and it's about to get even bigger.
As one of the largest development projects in Canadian history, the Square One district is unparalleled in its scale and ambition.
Anchored by Square One Shopping Centre, the new community will feature 37 high-rise towers with condos, offices, retail, and green spaces.
The multi-billion-dollar investment and goal is to create a true downtown for Mississauga.
The 18,000 residential units are set to house 35,000 residents, all right near the upcoming Hurontario LRT transit line. So why such a massive development? Well, it's because Mississauga's population is expected to explode. It's already the 6th largest city in Canada, and in the next couple of decades, close to 1 million people could be living here. That's prompting questions about how to keep the growing city affordable. The developer says more supply will help, with over half the new units slated for rental apartments. But there's no guarantee any will have lower than average monthly rent.
So this will be negotiated with the city. We are very adamant that all new developments will have a component of affordability in them.
Mississauga's mayor also wants to make sure there's ample park space and amenities like schools.
I think this is a transformative project for Mississauga.
Residents aren't so sure.
I think it's exciting. I mean, personally, I own a place close by, so I know the value's going to go up, but it's also a little bit scary because I know how congested and busy it's going to be around here.
They have to manage. If population become double, they have to manage their transportation, especially their living areas.
We've got such a big country and everybody's living in the same box. We should be developing the country and spreading the people out.
Like it or not, the first phase of Mississauga's massive new neighborhood is breaking ground this summer, and construction could continue for decades to come. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Mississauga.
After the break, we take you to Newfoundland, where there are a state of emergency remains, but some simple joys are back.
Just bread, a dozen eggs, and a bit of bacon, and some good old bologna.
Grocery shops reopen in St. John's today, 4 days after a blizzard buried the city and most of the province. That story coming up next. As his historic impeachment trial gets going, the U.S. president is more than 6,000 kilometers away. Donald Trump is at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, and the big theme this year is climate. But as Renee Filipponi tells us, Trump tried to keep the focus on his country's economic success while taking aim at climate activists.
The World Economic Forum in Davos is a high-profile annual event that draws thousands of the elite business and political leaders from around the world. And it's a platform Donald Trump used today to talk about his accomplishments. He kicked off with a speech saying America is thriving, America is flourishing, America is winning again, and then went on to list why, mostly focused on economics. But the focus of this year's event is on climate change and what businesses can do to promote sustainability. Trump said little on that topic, aside from announcing the U.S. would be part of the 1 trillion tree program, and that what he wants is the cleanest water and cleanest air. Then he took a swipe at climate activists.
This is not a time for pessimism. This is a time for optimism. Fear and doubt is not a good thought process, because this is a time for tremendous hope and joy and optimism and action. But to embrace the possibilities of tomorrow, we must reject the perennial prophets of doom and their predictions of the apocalypse.
This message was likely pointed at another big name at the conference this year, teen activist Greta Thunberg. She started her speech by saying in the past she has been warned that telling people to panic is a dangerous thing. But she says that really hasn't been the case because no one is taking action. Then she appeared to hit back at Trump.
We're not telling you to offset your emissions by just paying someone else to plant trees in places like Africa, while at the same time forests like the Amazon are being slaughtered at an infinitely higher rate.
Thunberg will be joined in Davos by hundreds of other activists who, in order to reach the city in the Swiss Alps with low or no emissions, are hiking for 3 days to get there after police banned them from walking on the roads. Some are dressed up as koalas to bring attention to the fires in Australia. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, London.
In St. John's today, gas stations, pharmacies, and grocery stores opened for the first time since a record-setting blizzard pounded Newfoundland on Friday.
Just bread, a dozen eggs, and a bit of bacon, and some good old bologna.
Good breakfast there. Officials in St. John's urge residents to buy enough supplies to last for at least 2 days. With necessities dwindling in households, there were long lineups at many stores. The airport will resume commercial operations tomorrow, but Premier Dwight Ball says it could be weeks before the region returns to normal. Brett Ruskin headed to a grocery store in St. John's this afternoon, and it was packed.
Well, this is a look inside one of the many grocery stores here in St. John's. This state of emergency is still in effect with all stores across the city closed down, but grocery stores have been allowed to open between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. today. That's to allow people to go and stock up on food because the stores have been closed for days. And so there's just lots of folks hoping to stock up on food. People were lined up outside stores, hundreds at each and every grocery store, it seems. And there's long lineups, as you can see, inside as well. Officials are warning and urging people to stock up on at least 48 hours worth of supplies as this emergency continues with still record-breaking amounts of snow outside. Again, the stores will close up at 6 o'clock. Everyone is encouraged to, again, stay off the roads to allow plow operators to continue the huge task of clearing the roads from this record-breaking snowfall. Brett Ruskin, CBC News, St. John's.
That's why we couldn't complain about our 15 to 20 on the weekend when we look at what friends and family are dealing with in Newfoundland.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm sure they're relieved to have those grocery stores open. And nice to see that there's some things, I know maybe not the perishables, but a lot of non-perishables on those shelves. So there's still some, they do have some goods there, of course, that they can be taken home. So glad to see that. You know what else I'm glad to see? That we've got a temperature trend that's headed in the mild direction and some sunshine coming on tap for Wednesday as well. So yeah, enjoy your hump day. There'll be some clouds later in the day, but sun early on. And then we do have active weather coming again, which we won't complain about. That's coming for this weekend. It may make travel a little bit difficult, especially on Saturday. These are a look at our numbers in terms of our average high and then what we were today. This is unofficial, but you can see how close we are to average. So kind of back to seasonal, a little bit off. In fact, mild for the overnight low. And then we go in the other direction. We get warmer. Our current temperature, though, it will still be cool overnight tonight. -5 to seeing -7 towards Hamilton. Feels like -13 there. -11 for the city and -10 for you in Oshawa. As that ridge of high pressure builds in, it's clearing our skies out overnight tonight. That sets us up for that sunshine tomorrow. It's a very broad ridge. It's taking care of not only what we're seeing here in southern and eastern Ontario, but across the eastern seaboard of the U.S. and over towards the Maritimes even as it pushes eastward. But you see to the north some of that light snow, just the next edge of the next system kind of poking in. Really, it's still back towards the Rockies. It's going to grab some energy from Western Canada. It's going to grab some moisture from the Gulf again and then come our way towards Saturday. So enjoy the drier conditions in the interim. There you go with your overnight lows, feeling like -14 though, and so that carries on. I always like to remind folks into the morning hours. It's still going to feel chilly, especially if you get, you know, you're walking in the shade. The breeze is going to be a little bit strong at times from the southwest, a little gusty. There we go into the afternoon hours. One of the nicest days I think we'll see weather-wise of this week. Thursday, the temperature warms up even more, 2 degrees for the high. Friday and Saturday as well, we'll see those kinds of temperatures. Overnight lows just above freezing, and that's why it is looking, Dwight, like this may be quite a mix of some wet, light snow with some rainfall coming at us on Saturday.
Like the temps, though. Thanks, Colette.
I like them too. You got it.
An evaluation of 2 safe injection sites in the city show that they are working.
These services are having a positive impact on their clients and making a difference. They are saving lives. We need to be using this kind of evidence to help bolster our response.
The reports show that the sites are reducing overdose-related harm because staff are available to immediately respond when overdoses happen. It also found that the sites increase safer drug use and help clients connect with health and social services. It is National Non-Smoking Week, and the federal government has announced funding to projects aimed at getting people to kick the habit.
The Government of Canada is committed to reducing smoking rates in Canada to less than 5% by 2035. By reaching this goal, we're going to have some innovative measures.
The money is going to 2 projects, one aimed at the LGBTQ community, a group disproportionately affected by nicotine addiction, and the other at vaping. These investments are part of the country's tobacco strategy that was launched in 2018. $20 million will go to various smoking cessation projects over the next 5 years. Tobacco is still the leading cause of preventable death and disease in Canada and continues to kill 45,000 people each year. After the break, Justin Trudeau's Liberals get ready to return from their break with a big deal on their agenda.
We will also move forward immediately on ratifying the new NAFTA.
What the Prime Minister says he'll have to do to get opposition support for the new NAFTA in a minority government. Stay with us. We will be right back. It's been nearly 2 weeks since 176 people died in the crash of the Ukraine Airlines jet, which was shot down just outside Tehran. The remains of many of the victims have since been buried in Iran. Others have been sent home to grieving families elsewhere. Ottawa says it is working to ensure the wishes of the families and loved ones of the Canadian victims are met.
There has been one repatriation of remains which took place, and we respected the wish of the family to respect their privacy. But yes, there will be a number of remains which, in accordance with the wish of the family, will be repatriated to Canada.
The CFO of Chinese tech giant Huawei, Meng Wanzhou, was back in a Vancouver court for the second day of her extradition hearing. This week's proceedings are focused on the legal test of double criminality, that is, whether U.S. allegations against her can be considered crimes under Canadian law. The U.S. wants Meng extradited to face fraud charges in New York. She was arrested in Canada more than a year ago at Washington's request. She remains free on bail, but is under house arrest at a home she owns in Vancouver. Former Quebec Premier Jean Charest says he's not going to be a candidate for the leadership of the federal Conservative Party. Charest told Radio-Canada today that he wouldn't be joining the race. The former federal cabinet minister led the Progressive Conservative Party from 1993 to 1998 before moving to provincial politics. Charest became leader of the Quebec Liberal Party, serving as premier from 2003 to 2012. There are only 2 declared candidates for the Conservative leadership, which will be decided at the end of June. Ontario MP Marilyn Gladu announced her intention to run earlier this month, and former federal cabinet minister Peter MacKay posted his plans on Twitter last week. Members of Justin Trudeau's cabinet have wrapped up their winter retreat in Winnipeg. As David Cochrane explains, they used the time to prepare an agenda and strategy for their return to the House of Commons as a minority government next Monday.
He's less than a week away from a parliamentary session where his government doesn't hold the trump cards, but has some unfinished business that involves Donald Trump.
When the House returns next week, we will also move forward immediately on ratifying the new NAFTA.
Moving forward requires a partner, and all of the opposition parties have raised objections to the new NAFTA. So the Prime Minister has some convincing to do.
What we've been doing is reminding everyone in the House and across the country of how important it is to secure our most important trading relationship for future generations.
In addition to NAFTA, the government plans to move ahead with updated legislation for medically assisted dying, and Trudeau says he will advance his election promise to ban assault rifles.
It's because we know that weapons designed to kill the largest number of people in the shortest amount of time have no place in our communities. There are immediate steps we will take in the coming weeks on that.
But while the cabinet turns its attention to Parliament, it maintains a heavy focus on Iran, pressuring the Iranian regime to abide by the wishes of the families when it comes to the repatriation of remains, and to turn over the black boxes to trusted allies.
There has been broad consensus in the international community that France would be the right place to send those boxes, but we continue to pressure Iran to do just that.
It's a heavy agenda for a short period of time. Trudeau needs cooperation at home and abroad to make it work. David Cochrane, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Coming up next, Oprah defends her decision to drop out of a Me Too documentary. The expose was centered on media mogul Russell Simmons and allegations of rape by multiple women. Oprah admits Simmons pressured her to leave the project, but said her decision to leave had nothing to do with that. The real reason she said she left, after the break.
Welcome to your Toronto newsroom. Good evening. I'm Mike Wise.
Oprah is talking about her decision to pull out of a documentary about Russell Simmons. The music mogul faces a number of sexual assault allegations. Yelena Adzik joins us now with more. Before we hear what Oprah had to say, though, let's catch us up on this doc.
Yeah, so the doc is called On the Record. And the idea here is that we hear from several women who say that they have been sexually assaulted by the music mogul, Russell Simmons. They say that this happened over a period of time that dated back several years. So these are not recent accusations. However, they have not been recorded to date. And so this is a person who has been very much in the public eye. You know, he co-founded Def Jam Records. This is someone who's also an entrepreneur, has a lot of apparel labels to his name. So he really has a lot of clout in the music industry. And so it was really shocking for a lot of people to hear that these women have come out with these accusations. In total, publicly, at least 20 women have come out with some form of allegation of sexual misconduct on the part of Russell Simmons. Now, he does deny all of these allegations, but still, they do continue. And so this documentary that we're talking about here, this is something that Oprah said just a little while ago that she would be distancing herself from. I'm going to give you a look at part of her statement. She said, "In my opinion, there is more work to be done on the film to illuminate the full scope of what the victims endured. And it has become clear that the filmmakers and I are not aligned in that creative vision." So it is worth noting, Dwight, that this was a doc that was supposed to air on Apple TV Plus, and with her name on board. That has now been pulled from Apple. However, it is still going forward at the Sundance Film Festival this weekend, with the original producer saying, you know, with or without Oprah, we want these women's stories to be heard. So there's a look at some of the headlines when we're talking about this particular case. It really is one that's fascinating because, you know, when you have a name like Oprah pulling out, it does bring up a lot of questions.
Big time. So we're hearing more about her reasoning today. What does she say about Russell Simmons on the notion that he himself influenced her to back out?
Yeah, so it is publicly known that, you know, he did post on Instagram a picture of the two of them together. She was interviewing him. He gave her books about meditation, saying, you know, we've worked so long together. And it was basically a plea to say, why are you doing this to me? And so today we're seeing this interview that she did with Gail. This is her, you know, dear bestie, friend. Yeah, that's right. And she was on Gail's show today. And this is what she had to say. And I'll preface this by saying that she talked a lot about her own experiences as a young child and sexual assault, and that led into this. Have a listen.
I stand in support of these women. I believe them. It was a hard decision because I knew that Russell Simmons had started publicly pressuring me, and that me pulling out of the documentary was going to look like I was being pressured. This is not a victory for Russell, and I unequivocally say that I did not pull out because of Russell. This is not a victory lap for him. I cannot be silenced by a Russell Simmons after all I've been through.
So, you know, she's on the one hand saying that she just doesn't feel that she could have been a part of it, but she's also saying, I hope people see the film and you know, you can make up your own mind. I'm going to give you a look at Kirby Dick and Amy Ziering. They are the people behind this movie that have said they're going ahead without Oprah. It is worth noting that these two have had major docs about sexual misconduct in the military. They've also had docs that had come up against Big Pharma. They have changed various regulations and policies. They've had congressional hearings happen because of their docs. So they're trying to affirm that we do have due diligence when we go through these documentaries. And so they just had some sort of a creative disagreement, clearly, with Oprah saying they haven't done enough. They're saying we are going to honor these women's stories and go forward anyways. So we're going to be hearing more about this when it actually premieres on Saturday at the Sundance Film Festival.
Thanks, Yana.
See you soon, Dwight.
Some good news. Former Montreal Expo Larry Walker has become just the second Canadian to be inducted into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. This was Walker's last chance to make it in. He played for the Colorado Rockies for most of his 17-year career. Walker won 3 batting titles, 9 Gold Gloves, and the 1997 MVP award. And check this out, earlier today, Walker tweeted the following: although I believe I'm going to come up a little short today, I still want to thank all of you that have been pulling for me and showing your support. I'm grateful for all of you. It's been fun leading up to today, reading everyone's thoughts. Never count yourself out, Mr. Walker. Congratulations, sir. The legendary rock band Queen has received yet another honor. It's now featured on a commemorative coin issued by Britain's Royal Mint. The band is on one side and the Queen is on the other.
They're all very pretty, and these will be available for purchase very soon.
The 1-ounce coin shows the band's logo and instruments played by its members. The keys of the piano are pressed down for the opening notes of the song Bohemian Rhapsody. The commemorative coin is available in gold and silver. From a dogfighting ring to canine detective, how this Ontario pup made history after the break.
What defines a city? It's the people. Torontonians are diverse, friendly, fanatical, and adventurous. We are the mirror to this amazing, shining city on the lake.
Our Toronto is your Toronto.
A pit bull who was rescued from dogfighting ring in Ontario is now making history in New Jersey. Meet Hansel. In 2015, he was rescued from a dogfighting ring near Chatham. He was just 7 weeks old. 30 other pit bulls were also rescued during the raid. 2 years after they were seized, some of the pups were shipped to a rehab center in the U.S., including Hansel. Now, he's the first pit bull in the Garden State and the U.S. to become a canine arson detective.
When I first got a picture of Hansel, I was like, can pit bulls really do this? In the instance where the scene is safe, I'll determine where the point of origin is, and then I'll dig out that area, and then Hansel's gonna come in and sniff out the area that I've dug out. And if he sits, then I'll take evidence, and if he doesn't sit, then it's a good, most likely was not an intentionally set fire.
Wow, Hansel went through 15 weeks of training to prepare to work with the Millville Fire Department. He performs critical tasks to help with arson investigations, such as detecting traces of gas and sniffing out 14 different ignitable odors. Impressive. I feel like you're flexing your muscles around here with the producers because all these cute dog stories, I feel like you pitched them all.
I love it. I love seeing.
I know you do love.
This. I met a pit bull at LAX at the Los Angeles airport. That was a therapy dog.
Wow.
So in the right hands, it's a breed that can really do some remarkable stuff.
A lot of fans out there among the viewers.
Yeah, and I guess you want to get to the weather there. I saw my board come up. Yeah, we are looking at our temperatures being on the milder side, or at least getting closer to milder. So we're finding our overnight lows around -7 for us tonight, and Dwight, tomorrow we're going to about 1 degree tomorrow afternoon with sun to start the day and some clouds later on. But it's going to be a really nice midweek day.
And we're not complaining because the hump day is going to be nice. They were giving the cue like they wanted us to stop there. They kept showing the shot at the end of the show. But now your weather board is up, and we do like those numbers.
Yeah, just a little bit breezy at times tomorrow, Dwight. That's all from the southwest. Those
Will
winds.
it be warm enough to actually melt some of that snow when we get up to 1 or 2, or no?
You know, we're going to see a few days there in a row where our temperature is going to be, the daytime highs anyway, are going to be just above freezing. So 1, 2 degree, but that's not that significant in terms of mild. But in terms of the overnight temperatures, they're going to be just below the freezing mark. So I think we'll see, especially close to the lakeshore, kind of a gradual melting, which is almost nicer to see than it all go at once. But most of this is going to be around for a bit.
We'll take the warm up. That's it for us tonight. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 6. Have a great night, everyone.